Playing with Power MTG. Powerful cards, powerful formats. We are back playing with Precon commander decks. In this series, we take pre-constructed commander decks right out of the box and see how they fare at the commander table. Today we will be playing with the newest Wilds of Eldraine Precons from the upcoming set. A big thanks to Wizards of the Coast for sponsoring today's video. Be sure to check out the link in the description for more info, and without further ado, let's start out by showcasing our fighters this evening. First, we have Mike, piloting Tegwylle, Duke of Splendor. This is the new Dimir Fairies deck from Wilds of Eldraine. This deck seeks to cast a bunch of fairies, connect with opponents, and gain card advantage from its commander. Mike's opening hand contains 2 Swamps, Island, Cloud of Fairies, Wayfarer's Bauble, Malleable Imposter, and his Lena Mulligan is a Swamp. Next, we have Zeb, piloting Anikthea, Hand of Erebos. This is an Abzan Enchantress deck seeking to cast a bunch of enchantments, draw a ton of cards, and recur value with its commander. Zeb's opening hand contains 2 Swamps, Forest, Mirari's Wake, Omen of the Hunt, Sithis, Harvest's Hand, and Narsi, Fable Singer. After that, we have Ryan, piloting Ellivere of the Wild Court. This is the new Selesnya Auras deck from Wilds of Eldraine. This deck seeks to go tall by equipping a bunch of auras onto a creature and swinging for massive damage. Ryan's opening hand contains a Shalai, Voice of Plenty, Retether, Paradise Druid, Command Tower, and 3 Plains. Finally, we have Zach, piloting Anhelo the Painter. This deck seeks to use its commander's casualty ability to copy powerful spells and overwhelm opponents. Zach's opening hand contains a Dimir Signet, Mimic Bat, Rite of the Raging Storm, Bloodsoaked Champion, Thriving Bluff, Foreboding Ruins, and a Swamp. Without further ado, let's kick off this wild, wonderful, whimsical whisper. Mike had the coolest commander and gets to start us off. Mike draws a card for turn and plays an island. He casts a Wayfarer's Bauble. He passes. Zeb draws, plays a forest, and passes. Ryan draws and plays a plains. He ends his turn. Zach draws and plays a Foreboding Ruins into play untapped, revealing a swamp from his hand. He casts Bloodsoaked Champion. Zach ships the turn to Mike. Mike draws and plays a swamp. He casts Cloud of Fairies. Fairies enters and Mike untaps 2 lands. He sends the turn to Zeb. Zeb draws, plays a swamp, and passes. Ryan draws and plays a forest. He casts Paradise Druid. In response, Mike cracks his Wayfarer's Bauble, fetching up an island onto the battlefield tapped. Druid resolves and Ryan sends it over to Zach. Zach draws and moves to combat. He attacks Zeb with Bloodsoaked Champion. Zeb takes it, and in his second main phase, Zach plays a Swamp. He casts a Dimir Signet. Zach gives the turn to Mike. Mike draws and plays a Swamp. He casts Ellivere Archmage. Mike passes the turn. Zeb draws and plays a Swamp. He casts Omen of the Hunt. It enters and Zeb fetches up a Plains onto the battlefield tapped. Zeb gives the turn to Ryan. Ryan draws and plays a Command Tower. He casts Shalai, Voice of Plenty. He passes. Zach draws and moves to combat. He attacks Zeb with Bloodsoaked Champion. Zeb takes it, and in his second main phase, Zach casts his commander, Anhelo the Painter. He plays a Thriving Bluff into play tapped, naming blue as it enters. He ships the turn to Mike. Mike draws and plays an island. He moves to combat and attacks Zach with everything. Zach takes it, and Mike passes. Zeb draws and plays a forest. He casts Mirari's Wake. In response, Mike activates Ellivere, sacrificing it, countering Mirari's Wake. Ellivere triggers and returns to the battlefield with a -1/-1 counter. With no other actions, Zeb ends his turn. Ryan draws and plays a Plains. He casts his commander, Ellivere of the Wild Court. It enters and Ryan creates a Virtuous Roll attached to Shalai. He moves to combat and attacks Zach with Shalai. Zach takes 4, Ellivere triggers, and Ryan draws a card. Ryan passes the turn. Zach draws and plays a Swamp. He moves to combat and attacks Mike with Bloodsoaked Champion. Mike takes it, and in his second main phase, Zach casts Body Count for its Spectacle cost, sacrificing Bloodsoaked Champion as a casualty cost through Anhelo, copying the spell. Both resolve, and Zach draws 2. He casts Dissonant Mage. Everyone gets CDH flashbacks as Zach passes the turn. At the end of Zach's turn, Mike flashes in a Malleable Imposter. It enters as a copy of Cass. The turn moves to Mike. Mike draws and plays an island. He casts his commander, Tegwylle, Duke of Splendor. He moves to combat and attacks Zeb with Ellivere. Zeb takes it, and Mike passes the turn. Zeb draws and plays a Corrosion Verge into play tapped. He casts Sithis, Harvest's Hand. He casts Sanctum Weaver. Sithis triggers, Zeb gains a life and draws a card. Zeb ends his turn. Ryan draws and plays a forest. He casts Pollen Bright Wings, enchanting his Ellivere. He moves to combat and attacks Zach with Shalai and Zeb with Ellivere. Ellivere triggers and Ryan creates a Virtuous Roll, enchanting his Paradise Druid. They both take it, and Pollen Bright and Ellivere trigger. Ryan draws 2 cards and creates 4 Saprolings. Ryan gives the turn to Zach. Zach draws and plays a Swamp. He casts Rite of the Raging Storm. He begs Mike not to counter it. Mike tells him he loves that card, and Rite resolves. Zach ships the turn. During his upkeep, Mike creates a 5/1 Lightning Rager with Trample and Haste. He draws and plays a Swamp. He casts Fairy Bladecrafter. He moves to combat and attacks Zeb with Ellivere and Lightning Rager at Ryan. Both take it, and Mike ends his turn, sacrificing Lightning Rager. During his upkeep, Zeb creates a Lightning Rager. He draws and casts his commander, Anikthea, Hand of Erebos. Sithis triggers, Zeb gains a life and draws a card. Anikthea enters, Zeb exiles Mirari's Wake from his graveyard and creates a 3/3 zombie token copy of it onto the battlefield. He cracks Crocian Verge, fetching up a plains and a forest onto the battlefield. He plays a swamp for turn. He casts Demon of Fate's Design. Sithis triggers, Zeb gains a life and draws a card. He casts Abundance, paying 4 life through Demon of Fate's Design. Sithis triggers and he gains a life and draws a card. He casts Ghoulish Impetus, enchanting his own Lightning Rager. Sithis triggers, Zeb gains a life, and Zeb reveals Enchantress's presence through Abundance, putting it into his hand. He moves to combat and attacks Mike with his Lightning Rager. Mike blocks with Cloud of Fairies, Fairies dies, then Mike takes 6. Tegwylle triggers and Mike loses a life and draws a card. Zeb passes, sacrificing his Lightning Rager. During his upkeep, Ryan creates a Lightning Rager. He draws and plays a Plains. He casts Kenrith's Transformation, enchanting Zeb's Anikthea. It enters and Ryan draws. He casts Ethereal Armor, enchanting his Ellivere. He moves to combat and attacks Zach with Shalai, Lightning Rager at Mike, and Zeb with Ellivere. Ellivere triggers and Ryan creates a Virtuous Roll attached to a Saproling. They all take the damage, and Pollen Bright and Ellivere trigger. Ryan draws 2 cards, and then Ryan creates 10 Saprolings. Ryan moves to his end step, sacrifices Lightning Rager, and Zeb returns Ghoulish Impetus to the battlefield, enchanting Ryan Shalai. Ryan discards the hand size, and the turn moves to Zach. During his upkeep, Zach creates a Lightning Rager. He draws and moves to combat. He attacks Ryan with Lightning Rager. Ryan takes it, and before his second main phase, Zach declares that he's going to cast a big spell to wipe the board. Mike bargains with Zach and asks what he's going to destroy. Mike says that he can help deal with Ryan's board if he doesn't wipe his own creatures. Zach contemplates, but ultimately agrees to only save one of Mike's creatures. So in response, Mike casts a Reckless Spite targeting Shalai and Sithis. Both are destroyed and Mike loses 5 life. In his second main phase, Zach casts Hex, sacrificing Lightning Rager as a casualty cost through Anhelo, copying it, targeting Ellivere, Sithis, the Undead Mirari's Wake, Anikthea, Demon of Fate's Design, Tegwylle, Glenelindra, Fairy Bladecrafter, and 4 of Ryan's Saprolings. In response, Ryan flashes in a Timely Ward, targeting his commander. In response, Mike activates Glenelindra, sacrificing it, countering the spell. Tegwylle triggers, and Mike loses a life and draws a card. Then both hexes resolve, and all the creatures are destroyed. Fairy Bladecrafter and Tegwylle both trigger, Mike loses 2 and draws 2, then each opponent loses 4 and Mike gains 4. With nothing else, Zach passes, and Zeb returns Ghoulish Impetus to the battlefield, enchanting Mike's casts. During Mike's upkeep, Mike creates a Lightning Rager. He draws and moves to combat. He attacks Ryan with Cass and Lightning Rager. In response, Ryan casts Swords to Plowshares, targeting Mike's cast. Cass is exiled, and Mike gains 4 life. Then Ryan takes the rest, and in his second main phase, Mike casts Night Veil Sprite. Mike ships the turn to Zeb. During his upkeep, Zeb creates a Lightning Rager. During his draw step, Zeb reveals a path to exile through Abundance. He casts Enchantress's Presence. He casts Font of Fertility. Enchantress's Presence triggers, and Zeb reveals a command tower through Abundance. He plays a command tower as his land for turn. He casts Narsi, Fable Singer. He moves to combat and attacks Ryan with Lightning Rager. Ryan takes it, and Zeb passes, sacrificing Lightning Rager. During his upkeep, Ryan creates a Lightning Rager. He draws and plays a forest. He casts Gilwain, Casting Director. It enters, and Ryan creates a Royal Roll attached to it. Ryan casts Retether. He returns Kenrith's Transformation, Ethereal Armor, Pollen Bright Wings, and a Timely Ward to the battlefield. Kenrith's Transformation enters, enchanting Zach's commander. Ryan draws, and then the rest are enchanted to Paradise Druid. Ryan moves to combat and attacks Zach with Paradise Druid, and Mike with his Lightning Rager and 10 Saprolings. Zach blocks with Kess, Mike blocks with Night Veil Sprite, then Mike takes the rest. All through, Ryan ends his turn, sacrificing his Lightning Rager. During his upkeep, Zach creates a Lightning Rager. He draws and casts Puppeteer Click. It enters, and Zach returns Demon of Fate's Design to the battlefield under his control. He moves to combat and attacks Ryan with Lightning Rager and Zeb with Demon of Fate's Design. They both take it, and Zach passes. At the end of Zach's turn, Mike flashes in a Nimrus, Una's Trickster. Then Zach sacrifices Lightning Rager and exiles Demon of Fate's Design. During his upkeep, Mike creates a Lightning Rager. He draws and moves to combat. He attacks Ryan with Lightning Rager. Ryan blocks with Gilwain and takes the rest. In his second main phase, Mike recasts his commander, Tegwylle. He casts an Arcane Signet and passes the turn. During his upkeep, Zeb creates a Lightning Rager. During his draw step, he reveals a Destiny Spinner through Abundance. In his main phase, he casts Destiny Spinner. Enchantress's Presence triggers, and Zeb reveals a Composer of Spring through Abundance. He casts Binding of the Titans. Presence triggers, and Zeb reveals a Tainted Field through Abundance. Then Binding enters, gets its first counter, and each player mills 3. He plays a Tainted Field for turn. He activates Destiny Spinner, turning his swamp into a 6/6 elemental with Trample and Haste. He moves to combat and attacks Ryan with his Elemental and Narsi, and Mike with his Lightning Rager. Everyone pleads with him to kill Ryan, as this would be lethal if he swung out, but instead Zeb decides to let another player deal with Ryan. Mike blocks with Nemrus, then Ryan takes it all and goes to 1, and Zeb gains 3 life. Zeb ends his turn. During his upkeep, Ryan creates a Lightning Rager. He draws and plays a Temple of Plenty, into play tap, scrying 1 as it enters. He moves to combat and attacks Zach with Paradise Druid, Mike with 9 Saprolines, and Zeb with Lightning Rager. Zach blocks with Puppeteer Click, Mike blocks 3 Saprolines, and Zeb declares no blocks. Before damage, Ryan flashes in an Indomitable Might, enchanting his Paradise Druid. Then Ryan has Paradise Druid deal damage to Zach, they all take the rest, Zach dies, and Pollen Bright Wings triggers. Ryan creates 15 Saprolines. In his second main phase, Ryan casts Sylvan Ranger. It enters and Ryan fetches up a forest into his hand. With nothing else, Ryan chips the turn to Mike. Mike draws and plays an island. He moves to combat and attacks Ryan with Tegwylle and Zeb with Nimrus and Nightveil Sprite. Nightveil triggers and Mike surveils, leaving it on top. In response, Zeb casts Path to Exile targeting Nimrus. Nimrus is exiled and Mike fetches up a swamp onto the battlefield. Then they both take the rest and Ryan dies. In his second main phase, Mike casts Nightmare Unmaking, exiling all creatures with power greater than the number of cards in his hand, wiping the board. Finished up, Mike passes. Zeb draws, and in his first main phase, Binding of the Titans gets another counter. Zeb exiles 2 cards from Mike's graveyard and gains 2 life. He recasts his commander, Anikthea. Enchantress's Presence triggers, and Zeb reveals a Canopy Vista through Abundance. Then Anikthea enters, Zeb exiles Sithis from his graveyard, creating a 3/3 zombie copy. He plays a Fortified Village into play untapped, revealing Canopy Vista from his hand. Finished up, Zeb passes. Mike draws and recasts his commander, Tegwylle. He passes. At the end of Mike's turn, Zeb flashes in an Omen of the Sun. Sithis and Presence triggers, and in response, Mike casts Arcane Denial, countering the spell. Then Zeb reveals a Love Song of Night and Day through Abundance, then reveals an Arcane Signet through Abundance and gains a life. The turn moves to Zeb. During his upkeep, Mike draws a card through Arcane Denial, and Zeb reveals an Archon of Sun's Grace and reveals a Tainted Wood through Abundance. During his draw step, Zeb reveals an Eidolon of Blossoms through Abundance. In his main phase, Binding of the Titans gets its third counter and Zeb sacrifices it. He returns Heliod, God of the Sun, to his hand. He plays a Canopy Vista, into play untapped. He casts Composer of Spring. He casts Heliod, God of the Sun. Sithis and Presence trigger, and Zeb reveals a Mending of Dominaria and reveals a Starfield of Nyx through Abundance and gains a life. He casts Starfield of Nyx. Sithis and Presence trigger, Zeb reveals a Jukai Naturalist and reveals a Kalani Heart Expedition through Abundance and gains a life. Starfield enters, Composer of Spring triggers, and Zeb puts Eidolon of Blossoms onto the battlefield. Eidolon and Composer of Spring trigger, Zeb reveals a Mindwrack Harpy through Abundance, and Zeb puts Archon of Sun's Grace onto the battlefield tapped. Zeb moves to combat, and since all of his enchantments are now also creatures through Starfield of Nyx, he attacks Mike with everything. Mike takes it all, dies, and Zeb wins the game. Ladies and gentlemen, what an awesome game tonight. Congrats to Zeb on his win. He was able to snowball out of control so quickly with his deck. The synergies were amazing and he capitalized on it. Even after multiple board wipes, he was able to rebuild quickly and eventually closed it out. Both Tegwylle and Ellivere were very cool commanders and we got to see some powerful stuff from them tonight. We love how Tegwylle's Death Touch kept everyone at bay and allowed Mike to build his board. Ellivere gave Ryan card advantage and let him snowball so quickly into a massive threat. These are very fun precons and we highly recommend you check them out. Well, that about wraps it up for this precon match. What deck did you like the most? What do you want to see next? Let us know in the comments below. A big thanks again to Wizards of the Coast for sponsoring today's video. For more Wilds of Eldraine, check out the link in the description below. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time.